say, okay, I have a lot of money, but you have no money unless you take profits.
When the first ever spot ETF was created for gold 10x.
And the only thing I really knew was Bitcoin at the time, so I just invested very heavily into that. Rode it all the way up.
What's up?
My name is Jess. Even the creators have said it's going to be the predecessor of CBDC.
What that taught me was that I need to be self-sufficient.
A solid DCA investment strategy, and pretend the red sell button doesn't even exist.
We about to go up like.
What up, DJs? Man, we got some fire topics that we're going to talk about tonight. We're going to be talking about the August 2023 CPI report. We're also going to be coming to Gary Gensler testifying before the Senate Banking Committee. And if we have time at the end, which hopefully we will, we're going to be discussing Visa expanding its settlement capabilities to the Solana network and a pilot program that they're working on. So with that being said, before we get into the content, make sure if you guys haven't done so already, you guys smash that like button. Make sure you guys are fully subscribed. And the biggest thing that you guys could do for us in this period, take the URL code and just copy and paste it all over your social medias, whether it be on Twitter, whether it be on Facebook, any other social medias. Take that URL code, copy it on there, and paste it out across the ether so that all your friends, all your family, everybody that you know can get an idea of the content that we're putting out. So also make sure you guys check in the description. You guys will find our Telegram, free Telegram to join. It's constantly growing every day. Make sure you guys are joined up in our Telegram, as well as finding all of the panelists on social media, as well as all the DJ and Roundtable social media websites on there as well. So with that being said, Will, what's going on, buddy? How's your week been? What you been up to? Anything cool happen? Where are you traveling at this week?
I am currently in between the two different job sites up in New York. We just finished up over near Lion Mountain, which is up by Lake Champlain, the Canadian, Vermont, and New York border. And I am heading over to the western side of New York. So anyone in the area, hit me up on Telegram, t.me, Will Stevenson. And yeah, that's what I'm up to. Other than that, just kind of like watching the prices of things, liking that we're going up a little bit in the Richard Hart ecosystem and flitting about over there. And other than that, just cruising, man. Mr. Nate, what's going on with you, bud?
Just the normal stuff. I actually took yesterday off of crypto, and kind of like a day and a half actually, because I got done with work quite early after a lot of things, and I was like, I'm gonna take a break, have a good time. I come back and the chat's got like almost 300 messages and stuff. I'm like, did something happen? But looking at the charts, it seems like it's kind of boring. So I've been shiny coin hunting lately. Just kind of throwing, $100 here, $100 there. Just, the $100 scratcher. A couple of these I have made quite a bit, and I would say I've lost, a little bit, but I would say overall I'm probably up about $400 from my initial 100 being thrown in. So I'm like, oh, yeah, I'm liking it, right? So speaking of boring markets, what's going on, Jay?
It's crazy because we consider the market quite boring right now, but like I was telling Nate a bit earlier before we went live, is that the more boring the market is when everybody's apathetic because the volatility is so low, that's actually a good time for value investors like us, because it gives us a lot more time in order to accumulate capital and to be throwing it at the projects that we think are going to do well long term. So boring is actually a very beneficial time for us value investors here in the crypto world. But as far as what I've been up to, yesterday I took the waifu up to Gold Canyon Lake. It's out in East Apache Junction here in Arizona. And we spent a good all morning and a good part of the afternoon just out in the water, kayaking. And let me tell you, man, I've been here in Arizona more than 10 years, and it's the first time I got my ass sunburned. And afterwards, I was wondering, how the heck did this happen? Because I spend so much time out in the sun, like literally more than 10 hours of my day is spent outside, working on my projects out in the sun, and I've never gotten sunburned, right? And then one of my buddies told me, he's like, bro, it's because you're out in the water, so you're not just getting hit with the sunlight directly, but when that sun is being reflected on the water, it's hitting you again. And so I'm like getting hit double whammy. So I'm like, oh, that makes a lot of sense. You can't really tell because of the camera, but I might be a bit browner than usual. So it's actually stinging a little bit against the back of my computer chair over here. But other than that, it was a lot of fun, man.
You're reaching Will's levels of brown over
Yeah,
there.
maybe. You know, but it was a good time, bro. The water was clean, it was clear. There wasn't a lot of people, right? Because it's far out in the mountains. It's quite a drive. It's high up, so people don't like driving up there. So there was only probably like a few dozen people out there, and the place was huge, right? So we spent it out there on the boats, and then when it got a little bit too hot, jump back in, then jump back on. I'm telling you, man, is that rowing, even just a kayak on calm waters, that is not easy, bro. My shoulder hurt like a motherfucker, man. And like I was like, I'm still kind of feeling it today. So I've got newfound respect for Myron, because I know that he rowed in college, and I always thought, man, that sport can't be too difficult because you're doing it in tandem with a team. And then I get out there on a single boat, and I'm like, oh fuck, this is a lot harder than it looks. So newfound respect for the rowers out there. But aside from that, same shit, different day, working on my business, accumulating as much capital as possible to DCA into Bitcoin, Ethereum, and all these other projects that I'm willing to hold long term and have strong conviction in. How about you, Josh? What you been up to, buddy?
Haven't really been up to much, man. I mean, just working, putting focus in on the channel here and everything. Trying to find, trying to squeak out an extra hour every day and stuff like that. It's a little hard to do. So definitely staying busy. Definitely had a good weekend though. My driver won in the NASCAR race last night, and then Ravens won today. They beat the Bengals today. So, but that's why the markets are slow. It's because it's the beginning of football season, man. Nobody's out there buying up. What do you guys think about that? I've heard that little rumor out there. I've heard that philosophy, that mindset. Nate, do you think there's anything true to that?
I think not so much buying up crypto. I think that's something that they would be doing. But what I think it is actually that they're not paying attention because they're too busy watching football, right? Same sort of thing as like any live show or anything, right? People want to go watch football right now, and if your team is on, right around this time, when we start here, it's kind of like the end of all the shows, all the games, the late games, and then all we have is Sunday night football after that, right? So we got a nice little spot right here, and we'll probably see people start filtering in. I'm not gonna lie, but as far as like buying goes, they're just not going to be looking. Obviously, they'll wait till the games are over. So I think that is a very true statement.
Yeah, that's a good point. Just people not paying attention, because it speaks to, anytime anything big's going on. Like, you think people are going to be paying attention once we get into full presidential swing cycle, when we're having the general election debates and, all that stuff's coming around? You think everybody's going to be paying attention, or are they going to be distracted doing other stuff? So it's definitely something to keep in mind.
I definitely think they're actually going to be paying attention, and the reason why is because crypto is actually going to be like a main subject for the presidential election. So I think people are going to start. Part of the bull market is going to be coming from the presidential election, and them saying, "Hey, this whole crypto thing, Bitcoin thing, right?" People will be like, "Oh yeah, I remember something about that. How's it doing now?" And when they go and look at it, they're going to start seeing green candles. It's going to be starting to do this, right? So then people are going to buy into green candles, and they don't want to miss out, So, yeah, I think we're only going up because of it.
We shall see. We shall see. All right. Well, with that being said, Jay, I want to kick it over to you real quick. I know you wanted to cover a little bit of TA before we got into the topic. So what you got for us, bud?
All right, fam. Let me know if you guys can see my screen here.
Yep, you're good to go, man.
Wonderful. Okay, so like I alluded to earlier, crypto right now, aside from the small pump in the market that we had at the tail end of last week, it's been pretty consistent sideways action. Now, we had a small injection of capital into the market over the past few days. If you notice here, the price for Bitcoin is currently sitting at 26,500 and above that 20-day moving average, right? And like I always say, whenever we have this strong moves to the upside, I always tell our guys and our girls to ask a question, right? And the question is this a so what pump, or is this actually a pump that we should be paying attention to? And so far, it's certainly the latter, right? It's something that you should be paying attention to because Bitcoin has recovered some key levels, most notably this 20-day moving average, and it has closed 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and it's set to close day number 6 above that 20-day moving average. Now, I think this pump is going to be short-lived if we do keep heading up. I think Bitcoin gets rejected at the top of this Bollinger Band right here, which is at $27,000. I think we get rejected there. And if you notice here too, right, we're on day 26 of the current 60-day cycle. Now, 2 days from now, on Tuesday the 19th, is the FOMC meeting. Now, to be honest with you guys, I think this pump right here is largely due to the fact that the CME, right, which is the Chicago Mercantile Exchange, they are priced in. They are pricing in, I believe it's anywhere between 97 to 98%. They're pricing in that Chair Powell will hold the rates during this next FOMC meeting. And so with that prediction, right, because a lot of folks pay attention to the CME, we got this large injection of liquidity into the crypto market because people are thinking that, JP is going to pause the rates, or not pause the rates. He's going to hold the rates consistent at where they are. However, I personally disagree with this sentiment because that would be completely incongruent with how JP has carried himself over the past 1.5 years, right? His ultimate goal over the last 1.5 years is to bring inflation down to that 2% goal, right? And it just does not make any sense to me that he will hold the rates where they at since we've had 2 consecutive CPI prints higher than we've had 2 prints higher than what we want, right? We're, instead of getting closer to that 2% goal, we're significantly further than we were 2 months ago. And so if he decided to hold the rates now, that would be completely incongruent with how he's been carrying himself over the past 1.5 years. So I think this is a bull trap, to be quite honest with you. And I believe that on Tuesday, right, this upcoming Tuesday, I think he's going to say, look, guys, everybody's expecting for me to hold the rates. I'm going to raise another 25 points, maybe 50. Who knows? I'm not sure. But I'm of the opposite end of the spectrum, right? I'm existing in the camp that's thinking that he will increase the rates, and that will bring the prices come crashing down, right? So the targets for downside price movement haven't really changed, right? I believe that since if we take a retracement, right, from our bear market lows to our current high of this year, see, this wave 2 has only hit this 0.382 level. Now, for those of you familiar with Elliott wave, you know that wave 2s tend to drop, have a tendency, they have a high probability of dropping all the way to this 0.618 level. And so that has not changed, right? Until the pattern breaks otherwise, I think Bitcoin hits the minimum here of 21,719 around this 0.618 level. Now, how long price is going to last at those levels, I'm not sure. We might only hit that level down there during a wick, probably maybe only a day or two before that price is bought up. But I'm still of the opinion that we see Bitcoin, especially if JP drops the rates this upcoming FOMC meeting, I think that we get a move downwards towards this 21,719 level. So just keep your eyes out, especially during the upcoming next week, because whatever news follows the FOMC, if we get more significant bearish news during this upcoming week, then that's going to push the prices down even further. And so the downside prices that I'm looking at sits anywhere between this 21,719 area and 18,965. Now, I doubt that we're going to break 20,000 because that would break us down below Bitcoin's realized price, which is sitting about 20,200. And like I mentioned last week, once we are in a bull market, Bitcoin does not want to head down below that realized price until the very next bear market. So even if we do head down there, I think that gets scooped up immediately. Now, in terms of upside momentum for the bulls out there, in order for us to maintain this momentum, it would certainly help Bitcoin if it kept closing above this 20-day moving average, right? But more importantly, we need to reclaim this level, this 0.382 fib level taken from our current yearly high to our current swing low. And that 0.382 level sits at about 27,552. If we can reclaim and start closing days above this level, then that's going to give me a little bit more confidence that the current low for this wave 2 is in, and Bitcoin wants to start heading into its wave 3, right? So keep an eye out for Bitcoin's price to head up to this 27,500 level, and you'd want it to start closing days above that price. Now, wow, look at that. Coincidence. The 200-day moving average is sitting just slightly above that level at 27,700. Now, I mentioned this last week. You do not want Bitcoin to spend a significant amount of time below this 200-day moving average. If we turn on the 50-day moving average, you could see that we have crossed. This death cross did occur, which we have been speaking about over the past few weeks. And I know a lot of people out there are not thinking that this is such a big deal. I don't think it's such a big deal either, right? I think this was inevitably going to happen because of the characteristics of wave 2s during the first pullback of the 5-wave impulse on an Elliott wave sequence. And so this happening right here is actually not that surprising to me, right? And so I'm also not worried. I'm just saying that it's something to pay attention to, that you don't want Bitcoin to stay significantly below this level for a great amount of time, because that just means that there's a higher probability the price is going to move much further down than we anticipate, right? And so if Bitcoin can reclaim this 0.382 level and then also reclaim this 200-day moving average at 27,700, then that's going to give me a little bit more confidence that the overall trend is reversing and it's maintaining that reversal, and that the bulls are starting to gain control of the market once again. So just keep an eye out on those two targets. If we were going to head down lower and if we were going to head down higher, you'd want Bitcoin to start closing days above this 27,500 level and ideally reclaim that 200-day moving average at 27,700. And then finally, like I mentioned a bit earlier, pay attention to what's going to happen next week, especially around that FOMC meeting, because that is going to determine what we are going to do on the latter half of this 60-day cycle. Because day 30 of this cycle is on, is on Thursday. So 2 days after the FOMC meeting, we have day 30 of the 60-day cycle. So if we do not make a new high before day 30 of the cycle, then expect a little bit more downside during the latter half. Now, because we did make this move upwards, I think that we do retest this 25,000 level once again. Whether we head down lower is yet to be determined. Like I said, just pay close attention to that news and to that FOMC meeting. And if we do not make a new high prior to day 30, then expect more headwinds in price during the latter half of the cycle. What that price is going to be is yet to be determined, but that's just something to pay attention to and to keep an eye out. That's all I had for you guys in terms of the TA. short and sweet because there's not really much happening in the market currently. Let me throw it over to Josh and to the rest of the panel to see if they want to add anything else to that analysis as well.
Don't really have anything to add. I'm looking at the fear greed index right now, and it's sitting at 46, which is pretty neutral.
Yeah.
What's,
with like the price action, right?
yeah, for sure. So you said the markets right now are being. You said the Chicago Mercantile is. You said there's a price in right now that it's going to be a pause. Yeah, the pricing in a pause. So what's going to happen to the market if they come in and Powell throws a curveball and he increases it by another 0.25%?
Oh, I think we head down. Bro,
Yeah.
that is no question, right? Like I mentioned earlier, I think the reason why we got that injection of liquidity in the market and we saw we've had 5 consecutive days of green candles is because people are pricing in that he's going to hold the rates. Like I mentioned, I'm on the opposite camp. I think if he held the rates, it would be incongruent with how he's been acting through this 1.5 years. And then people like me who are thinking, bro, that's not what you've been saying. And if you hold right now, then that means you're full of shit. And so if he does increase the rates, I think that gets the market to come down. At the very least, we test 25,000 again, maybe lower. It all depends on what else happens during the next week. But I think if he decides to increase the rates by 25 points, it's going to provide significant headwinds to price, for sure.
Yeah, and that's definitely a great. I'm sorry. Go ahead, Will.
I was just going to say, so the long and the short of it is essentially look for good price points if you're attempting to enter into the Bitcoin arena, because that's reasonable to expect if Jay Powell does what he has been doing consistently throughout the last 2 years.
Yeah, agreed. Because the market moves heavily based on this kind of news. And so if he does decide to throw a curveball like that, yeah, man, I'd expect Bitcoin to at least retest 25,000 at the minimum.
Do they know something that we don't know? Like, was there some sort of conversation with Jay Powell where the administration or somebody came to him and said, look, if this happens, like, we're not touching it anymore? Like, what? It doesn't make sense. The 2% goal for inflation that was set out is obviously not being met. And we're about to cover this. This is the second month now that we've had an increase on the inflation. And we got wholesale prices that are on the rise as well. So prices are still going up. It's totally backwards. Nate, you came off of mute. What were you going to say there?
Oh, I had something actually about the chart, but I've also, I do have a little bit of it's kind of the same question that you've got there. It seems a bit odd, right? It's like when you listen to Powell, he literally is saying, oh, I want to raise it 2 more times, right? And then this was back in July, and then he's like, but I prefer to try and overshoot just a little bit just in case, right? So it's like, okay, we're looking at 3 times. All right, since then we've had one skip, 1 raise going on for what I would say would be the second raise now, then 1 more raise, and then possibly a skip/pause. That's what I would say. But it's been seeming like, why are they thinking we're going to be getting a skip this time around? That just seems odd to me, and I almost wonder if they're spinning some sort of story right now where they want the markets to get scared. That's what I'm thinking. They want the markets to be scared. They want something in the stocks to drop, right? It just seems kind of odd to me, man.
Fuck your
I'll touch
puts.
I'll touch on that. I'll touch on that here in a second. Go ahead and ask the chart question, and then after that, we can go ahead and move into the CPI report.
So when you're talking about the death cross, right, Jay? There was another time when we hit a certain low where the death cross happened, and it was for a short period of time, a couple of months, and then all of a sudden we hit the golden cross, and it was only up from there, and that's where the bull market, the next bull market really started happening. Do you remember when that was on the Bitcoin chart, Jay?
Bro, if I had to take a guess, I would strongly believe that it was 2019, that time, right? And
yeah,
So here's the thing. It's not coincidence, bro. That move to the downside, guess what? If you were analyzing that using Elliott wave, it was also during wave 2. Right? It was also during wave 2, which is when you get the most significant downwards movements during that impulse. And so it's not a fucking coincidence, which is why, look, I don't assume that a pattern is going to break until it does. And until it does, I'm going to assume that during a wave 2 of a 5-wave impulse, Bitcoin is going to price is going to head down at least a minimum to that 0.618 level, which is at 21,700, right? Until that pattern breaks, I'm not going to assume that something else is going to happen. Now, is my plan going to shift if it does? Absolutely. But until it does happen, I'm going to maintain the course, right? My investment thesis will hold, and it will be determined by prior price action and what the current market is doing now. So that's a good observation there, Nate.
Well, see, here's the other thing. Are you ready for a funny correlation? So
Okay, bro.
when you're looking at it, technically speaking, it started off, right? We hit the death cross, and then it started off kind of going down, and then we had a big drop. That big drop happened, I think it was the month before, or like 2 months before the Bitcoin halving at that time. We had a massive drop off, right? And then it was just green candles and up. And in going up, obviously we hit the golden cross at that point in time, and then it was off to the races. With the rates stopping, we still have the pivot that needs to happen. There's a whole lot of stories still being spun that are, lots of just FUD events and things like that. The Bitcoin halving is coming up. I believe it's March, if I remember correctly, of next year. I don't know. It seems like history is not necessarily repeating, right? But it certainly is rhyming pretty damn well.
Yep, 3 things are guaranteed in life: death, taxes, and Bitcoin volatility. It's going to happen. So let's go ahead and let's go ahead and transition. All right, August CPI reports. I'm going to give the TLDR, and then we can have an open conversation about it. So overall, consumer prices rose 3.7% compared to August of 2022. The 3.7% is up from 3.2% last month. Core inflation fell to 4.3% in August, from 4.7% in July. Retail sales rose 0.6% in August. This is largely due to the increase in fuel price. Have you guys seen an increase in fuel prices? I know I have. It's because every week I'm putting fuel in my vehicle, and it feels like over the summer there's been a pretty steady rise to. It's getting to the point now where when people started to complain like a year and a half ago, it's starting to get to that point again, at least in Baltimore. I'm not sure. Will, what are you seeing?
Yeah,
I'm seeing all over the
fuel
country?
Prices. Yeah, so it's kind of like my baseline is kind of fucked because I hit so many different spots where there's so many different fuel prices. I just came down like from super duper north New York down into like the more southern half, and like we went from 415 up there to it's 350 where I'm at right now over here, like near the New Jersey border and stuff, if I cross over and whatnot. But like, yeah, man, fuel prices are going up. I'm not sure. Again, it's hard to say a baseline, but I'm definitely noticing price increase. So, but is fuel factored into the CPI? I thought that fuel was not.
So it's factored into retail sales. Okay, so it's not into the over. Yeah. So it's factored into its own little segment of retail sales. Yeah. All right. So when it says retail sales rose 0.6% in August, 0.4% of that, so more than a majority, was largely due to increased fuel prices. All right. So the retail sales excluding fuel prices rose 0.2% in August.
Yeah.
All right.
That's why you. Yeah. That's why if you look at core inflation, it went down because core inflation excludes food and excludes fuel, right? So food and fuel apparently they determine as extremely volatile in terms of price fluctuations. So they take that out of the equation when calculating core inflation, which is why it makes sense that it went down. Because I guarantee, Josh, you asked, right? Prices here from about 6 months ago is up $1.50 again. All right, the lowest I saw here was about 310, 320, and now it's hovering around 470, 480.
Yeah,
So
well, I
yeah,
know we're at 380 up here in Baltimore. Over the summer, at the beginning of the summer, I wanted to say it was in the 330s, 335 range, but it's getting back up in the 380 range right now. All right, just finishing off this TLDR, and then we can start a little back and forth. So on a month-to-month basis, the overall wholesale prices rose 0.7% in August. Okay, this is the biggest gain in more than a year, and it is up 0.4% compared to last month. Okay, so wholesale prices are beginning to increase as well. All right, core wholesale prices are slightly up 0.2% from last month, down 0.3% in July. All right, so I throw a whole lot of numbers out there under a whole lot of different categories. What all does it mean? What is the summary of the CPI? Here's what I drew from that. Okay, the inflation goal of 2% is looking more and more difficult to obtain, especially when you take into account that we already had a raise in unemployment. We saw that last month, right? We saw the jobs report come out and increase. There is a raise from 3.5 to 3.8% unemployment. So unemployment is starting to go up. All right. Typically, when unemployment starts to go up, what we want to see is for these interest rates to not be moved at all. We want to see the inflation number either stay the same or start to go down. All right. But inflation is starting to tick back up again. This is the second month now that we've had an increase in the inflation. All right. And the increased wholesale prices don't help the Fed's actions. So going back to what you said at the beginning, Jay, I want to dive a little bit more deeply into this if we can. With a 97 to 98% priced in action that Jay Powell is not going to touch the rates at all for this upcoming FOMC meeting. How can that be the case? Because really, when you think about what the role of the when you think of the role of the Fed, it's got two primary jobs. Maximize employment and price stabilization. All right. And Jay Powell has already made the statement that he is willing to sacrifice the unemployment rate if it means getting the inflation rate back down to closer to 2%. So if the Chicago Mercantile is already pricing in, so right now what we have is we have a tick up of inflation. Inflation is starting to slowly increase again. Plus, we have unemployment already starting to increase. All right. So these are two bad recipes right here. And we can talk more into the stagflation part a little bit farther down the road. But how can that be the case? Does it make sense to anybody on the panel? Or Jay, what are your thoughts behind it? I know you said, because I agree with you. I'm leaning in the opposite direction. I don't think it makes sense when you think of how aggressive Jay Powell has had to be over the last year. And look, I'm going to give the guy credit. He came into a situation similar to Paul Volcker, you know what I'm saying, back in the 70s, where nobody wants to be the Fed chair and have to raise interest rates. Nobody wants to do that. It's a shitty job. The guy did it. You know what I'm saying? So I'm going to give credit where credit is due. He has seemed to be willing to do the tough stuff when it comes down to it. But right now isn't the time to pause, is it? Right now is the time where if we're already seeing unemployment starting to increase and we're still starting to see inflation starting to tick up again, now we need to punt, now is when we would need at least another increase. Am I correct in that?
Yeah, absolutely. And actually brought up a really good point there. If two of the metrics that you're looking at are, you mentioned unemployment, right? The reason why when people inquire during the press conferences, they ask about unemployment, and JP always responds that in order for inflation to go down, we have to see a softening of the jobs market, right? And that's just a very PC way of saying we need people to lose their jobs in order to see the numbers go down. Why? Because people are not going to have the kind of expendable capital to throw at the economy, because they're only going to be concerned with spending that money on their basic necessities, right, for living. And so if the job reports come out and we see that the labor market is indeed already softening, but we now have 2 consecutive months. We had the July report and we had the August report that inflation is up 2 consecutive months from, I believe in June, it was down to 3%, right? So we've had 2 consecutive months of increased numbers. So
Yeah,
those two
3%.
things
It
that-
was 3. It was 3% on the money in June. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Right. So you're looking at the jobs market softening. You're expecting those numbers to keep going down, right? The inflation numbers in response to the softening labor market, and that's not happening. And so I'm in the same boat as you. I asked the guys in our Telegram this when those numbers came out from the CME, and I was like, "What the hell are we missing here? Like, what the hell are we missing here? Why is the CME pricing in a 97% that he's going to hold the rates when these two metrics that he's tracking are moving in the opposite direction that he wants?"
And you know what? And he paused in June. Am I crazy? So he paused in June, and then he added another one in July.
Yeah, which makes
Am I
sense.
and I agree. I think, you know, when that number came down to 3% in June, it was surpassing what their expectation was, and it was like, cool. You know what I'm saying? I think a pause right there was perfect, but I don't think a pause going into a period right now is what's needed at all. So that's why I asked the question: is there backdoor conversations that he's having? Do people know something? You know, if it comes out in the meeting and he does in fact pause, you know, it's not going to be along the same lines that it's been over the last year and a half. Continue your thought. I didn't mean to cut you off there.
No, brother. I think, look, again, right? I'm a pattern guy. If there are backdoor conversations that's happening, I wouldn't be surprised. But JP has been very consistent in his actions, right? He's like, I need this number to get down to 2%. And until that number is met, I am going to keep increasing rates. Now I know people are speculating that we are never actually going to reach that 2% goal, that we are going to start reversing before that happens, right? And that's certainly possible. But the fact that Zenith mentioned it, right? It's 85% above our goal of 2%. And so that's a pretty significant percentage, right? And so until I see otherwise, I don't see any reason why he would deviate from his core mission, especially when he's been so freaking consistent throughout the past year and a half. And so I think personally, look, obviously he's not going to freaking comment on it, right? Until the meeting, like for example, if he does decide to hold it, we're gonna get some kind of explanation during the meeting, right? But until then, it's anyone's best guess. So if there are backdoor conversations happening and he does hold the rates, I would be very surprised, bro. I would be very surprised. I think this whole thing is a honey dick, right? People are pricing in because the CME said 97%. They're going to long Bitcoin now. And I think they're going to get wrecked, man. But that's me personally, man. That's a very opinionated answer, I think.
I think the worst thing that Jay Powell could have done is said, all right, we're only going to do X amount this year, up until this year. We're going to do X amount of raises. We're going to do X amount of pauses. I think that's the worst thing that he could have done. I don't think he should have showed his hand at all, because this is honestly a complex situation. And what you might foresee in May or June could be completely different in July and August. And that's exactly what we're seeing right now. You know what I'm saying? So, you know, thinking back 3 months ago when the aggressive measures were being taken and they were like, you know what, forecasts can say this and trajectories can say X, and, you know, forecasts can say Y, you know, but he shouldn't have announced it. I don't think he should have announced it. And Zenith also mentioned the main anti-race sentiment is due to bank failures. You know, I'm curious what the panel thinks about that, because I'm the type of person where I think the market will handle any situation. And if you're not, you know, if your bank isn't strong enough to handle an increased inflation, you know, we're going to have to deal with this one way or the other, right? And I'm the type of person, I think the markets handle the situations best, but I'm curious to know what you guys think as well.
You know what I think? Here's what I think. I'm thinking that this is a sentiment play. I think everybody's saying, oh yeah, he's going to pause, he's going to pause, he's going to pause, is maybe markets and backdoor talks, you know, from bigger institutions telling him, hey, it's time to stop. It's time to stop. We're expecting you to lighten up here. And it's going to have to be him who is very specifically like, no, I can't. I literally cannot do this. We're, what would you say, 4.3%? And I personally don't think we're going to end up hitting that 2% that they wanted. I think we'll probably sit at 3 and it'll have to be like good enough, right? But they still need to drop it. And so I think this is a narrative that is going against Powell. And I think what's happening here is they're telling him to stop, and he's like, I'm not going to. And I think when he showed his hand, he kind of anticipated that this was going to happen. It was going to kind of come to this. And so he was saying, hey, this is what you guys can expect out of me, and expect that maybe I even go further than specifically what I'm going to be doing here. And I think he did that overall as kind of like talk about soft landing, right? Soft expectations. I already told you guys I'm going to be doing this. And then all the institutions, BlackRock and all of them are like, hey, you need to stop. Like, calm down, calm down. And he's like, no, I told you guys I have to do this. That's what I'm thinking.
You know, we'll ultimately see how it plays out. Will, I know you just came off of mute. What did you have to say?
I was going to say it's going to be interesting to see I don't know much about the way that all this stuff works, but it will be interesting to see the quality of Jay Powell's character, if he is a man who does the things that he says that he's going to do, or if he's a person who constantly switches up and adapts to new circumstances as they present themselves. I don't know, like, where these pressures for him to make decisions come from, what kind of backdoor discussions are being had. I assume that there's a whole bunch of them going on. I'm interested to see the quality of the character of Jay Powell as time moves forward, because so far he seems to be a man who does the best with what he's got. I agree with you in that, Josh, that he's taking what he's got, which is not a very good hand, and playing it to the best of his abilities and staying true to his word and whatnot. So I don't know. I would like to see it continue, because he seems like a respectable person. And just kind of looking at it from that aspect, those are my thoughts.
Well, that's as of now. You know, if we come up to the next FOMC meeting and he doesn't raise rates, then that's going to throw a kink into things, to be honest with you. But yeah, because I mean, he's done what I deem to be appropriate. You know what I'm saying, with the interest rate raises. I think it's been calculated well, and the approach has been. I think he's putting his best foot forward, but we will definitely see. Me and Brendan, we talked about it a month or two ago. We said that it's a little bit too soon to start worrying about, with the numbers where they were a month or two ago, to say, okay, well, we might be looking towards a period of a longer economic recession, or even a period of stagflation. And I think with these numbers where they are now, we're starting to see an increase in unemployment, plus the numbers starting to tick up again. I think that's I cannot understand how people are pricing in that they're going to pause rates. It baffles my mind. I can't understand it. It just doesn't make sense to me. And I'm absolutely speechless, because if I'm Jay Powell right now, I'm looking at these numbers and I'm saying, you have to be a madman to think I'm not going to increase rates. But there could be a little bit of validity to what Zenith was saying, and as far as the fears of a bank failure, but at the end of the day, I'm of the accord that this Band-Aid needs to be, this wound needs to be dealt with. It can't just keep getting a temporary bandage put on it. The right thing needs to happen. So, any other thoughts that you guys have on this topic?
Yeah, one thing that I know is that JP Morgan was actually, they were hurting pretty bad, and it was getting to the point where they were actually in the running for the next bank to collapse. And so my wondering is, possibly if they continue to raise, JP Morgan is going to be in serious trouble, and they're one of the bigger ones, and so they probably went to the Fed and was like, hey guys, like, you can't have us collapsing here. It's we can't fail, like, we're too big to fail, right? You guys are going to have to bail us out, and you have to start printing and all this if you continue to raise the rates. I almost wonder,
I don't think that's happening, man. I think the federal government is in bed with JP Morgan. And despite what people might speak about online, there is absolutely no way that they're going to allow JP Morgan to fail, right? Zenith brought up a good point in the chat. He says the public narrative is to avoid bank failures, but behind closed doors, something else is going on. And when I talk about bank failures, I'm talking about the smaller credit unions that are probably local or have a fewer number of franchises across the US, right? Those guys are going to be the ones that are going to close down. And who's waiting in the wing, ready to scoop up whatever is left whatever is left in the ashes, right? It's these big banks like JP Morgan, like Bank of America. They're the ones who are waiting in the wings, waiting for this exact type of event to happen for them to scoop up whatever is remaining, right? But I don't think that's happening. I don't think the banks are going to fail. It's not the big banks anyway, because we all know that they're working very close, hand in mouth with the federal government. So I doubt that's going to happen. I think that's a lot of reckless speculation that you're hearing from people who's thinking that JP Morgan is going to fail. But there's absolutely no way. There's no way.
Yeah, and even so, like exactly what you said, it's going to be even better that he raises rates for the smaller banks to fail, so that way they can condense them all into like just 5 major banks, right? So again, we're coming back around to this whole thing of why would he pause for now? Like, why would he skip? It just doesn't make any sense whatsoever.
Yep. So if you guys don't have any other comments, I mean, I can't wrap my head around it. I really can't. We can transition to the next topic if you guys wish to do so. Any other final comments before we hop off?
Yeah, bro. Let's get on to the next story. Yeah.
Yeah, let's do it, man. All right. So next topic we're going to be covering is the Gary Gensler SEC hearing that he had with the Senate Banking Committee. Jay, you did some research into this today. What did you come up with in your research? What did you find interesting? My key takeaways from it, there was only a very limited amount of crypto talk in it at all. But one of the big things that I noticed is that the Senate Banking Committee chairman, I believe it's Senator Sherrod Brown. Now, let me look at it real quick. Yeah, Sherrod Brown. He seems to be a Gary Gensler fan, and he's all about the actions that Gensler is taking and some of the comments that he was making. So it seems like if there's going to be any real actionable regulation that comes out of the Senate, it seems like the Democratic chairman there is dragging his feet a lot, and he seems very supportive of Gensler and shares a lot of the same sentiment that Gensler has as far as the cryptocurrency space being what was it that they said, ripe with I can't remember the exact term that was used. I'll look it up.
With scam.
Yeah, rife with fraud. Yep.
Fraudsters.
Yep, exactly.
Ivan, fraudsters, hucksters, scam artists.
Yep. Yeah. So, and I mean, look, there are some people, there is a certain amount of people in that space, right? There's a certain amount of people that fit that that status. There are people that create a coin just to rug, you know what I'm saying? So there are fraudsters, just like there are fraudsters in every market. There are, scam artists in every aspect of life. But to use that as the focal point during a legislative hearing, I don't know about all that. But what did you think, Jay? Let's want to hear what you thought, and then let's have some discussions around it.
Yeah, sure. So I am actually of the same mindset as you here, Josh. I listened to this hearing twice, and my key takeaways from this Senate hearing, they actually focused a significant portion of their time around AI, right? When you compare that to the hearing, I believe he appeared before the Senate back in, it was either June or July, that had a significantly higher focus on cryptocurrency, right? And they really grilled the hell out of him during that hearing about crypto. And there was almost zero to no subject matter revolving cryptocurrency during this specific hearing also. And so, I understand the concerns about AI, right? Because the same, I mean, just because it's not a human, right? That doesn't mean that the human element is absent from it, right? I think AI right now is getting a significant amount of press because companies are using it to make a lot of the very laborious menial tasks that they usually outsource. They're using AI to help eliminate some of that, and so there's certainly a significant benefit, right? But there's also the other side of the equation where you're seeing some of these. I'm sure some of you guys have seen this stuff on YouTube, on TikTok, like the deep fake videos, right? Imagine you had somebody create a deep fake impersonation of like a popular movie star or social media influencer, and then they get that person to create a false advertisement or endorsement for some kind of asset, right? It doesn't even have to necessarily be about crypto, right? It could just it could be for anything. And then now you've increased the attack surface for the broader public when it comes to these types of scammers, right? And so it seems like in this specific hearing, the thing on the hot seat right now is AI. There wasn't really too much there about crypto. I think it certainly is an area where you should focus some of your attention. But to be quite honest with you, brother, my focus right now is on the cryptocurrency space. And watching this hearing, I was like, damn, bro, like I see why you guys see the need to talk about it, but a lot of this stuff just it didn't really interest me, bro. It really, like, that's me personally. But I'm a crypto maxi, so what can I say?
Yeah, I hear you. I hear you. There were even though it was limited in the coverage, there were still some decent parts. Gensler was called out on his what seems to be a pattern of recent court battles. I guess it would be the best way to put it. Decisions that the SEC has made that have been overruled. He got called out on that, which I think was extremely important, and it was very relevant to the current situations, the current rulings that are going on. And he gave some around the bush answer for what he was doing. But yeah, at the end of the day, there wasn't too much to cover on the crypto asset side. Nate, did you have the opportunity to watch it at all?
Yeah, it was very entertaining. I don't know how these people do this stuff. So it starts off right, and they talk about all that he did from or cleaning up the mess from 2011, 2008, coming up with new laws and stuff to help out the financial crisis and all that, and really glossing them over all well. And the SEC is doing a great job. And then it's like, oh, but as of 2021, and you guys have been kind of just fucking everything up. I'm just like, and every single time Gary's answering, he's like, oh, well, it's somebody else who was supposed to be, taking care of that. That wasn't the SEC specifically, who are in charge of that. You'd have to go to them instead. It's like the FIC or something like that. And I'm sitting there listening to this like, so how exactly does this work then? And aren't you guys supposed to be in communication with each other? And so then you start getting really confused. And specifically what's supposed to be happening, and you know that it's just a lot of, as you say, beating around the bush, right? It's kind of like, instead of just saying, yeah, I screwed up, it's like, oh no, pointing fingers, right? And so I was seeing a lot of that. It was really funny. Elizabeth Warren, really, with the way that she was talking, I was like, holy crap, how do you you don't want to be in the same house as that one there. How about that? But Yeah, no. One of the biggest things that I was noticing, they were talking a lot about AI, but there was also a lot of talk about regulations as far as what to do in certain situations. One situation that has been brought up before that I think regulation is going to be really important for is dirty Bitcoin. I don't know if anybody's heard of that yet, but say somebody did something illegal with a Bitcoin, 10 years ago, and all of a sudden now you get that Bitcoin in your wallet. Technically speaking, they could trace you all the way back to that time, right? And so when it comes to the regulations, I think they were bringing this up too, if I remember correctly, is they're spending too much time focusing on specifically like what is a security, and they're not focusing on like what is if the crypto is a security or not, and not necessarily like how to protect the investors who are investing in these crypto assets. And he was really, his answer to that was, I just summed it all up to basically, so yeah, you don't know and you're not trying. Because he really beat around the bush about, oh no, we're doing this, we're doing that, blah blah blah, and it's like, so you're not doing it. Got it. Personally, I think a lot of googly guck going on with him.
I think that if they're going to try to hold somebody liable for being paid in Bitcoin that was used for malicious intent 10 years ago, there's probably going to be some kind of statute of limitations, right? Set in place for something like that, because that goes into the whole protecting the investor, right? Like how could you even consider holding somebody liable by being paid in Bitcoin that probably switched hands several times along the way?
You can't.
You can't.
You can't. That's just like saying somebody that spent $100,000 on kilos of cocaine that got recirculated into, you know what I'm saying? Like it can't. Now if being able to track Bitcoin for either law enforcement or regulation purposes, yeah, that could be in the cards, that could be possible, but yeah, I mean, somebody can't be held. That's like saying, if somebody used the $20 bill in your wallet for nefarious purposes, you can be held accountable for it. So yeah, there's no way that something like that could happen. That they may have been speaking on some other aspect, but they wouldn't be able to do that. But I didn't mean to cut you off there. Go ahead and continue.
Yeah. No, that was really the only comment that I wanted to make on what Nate said. But going back to what you were mentioning about the during the Senate hearing, they were kind of getting on him about why are you taking all of these cases that it seems like you're losing a significant amount of these cases that you're taking on, and therefore exhausting taxpayers' money. I think, to be quite honest with you, I think that's just Gary trying to take on these battles within the cryptocurrency space. They didn't mention specifically the L's that he's taken within the cryptocurrency space that he's been taking left and right over the past several months. They didn't mention that specifically, but I guarantee you that's what they were thinking when they brought up that line of reasoning. I think Gary actually went into those fights thinking that they could win. However, somebody I was watching this, somebody mentioned it on stream, right? And they brought it up and said, look, when the SEC is picking fights with people within crypto, they are not picking fights with people who are pushovers, that people that can be bullied easily, that people that don't have the requisite amount of capital to fight you, and more importantly, fight you in an extended manner, right? We're talking maybe anywhere between 5 to 10 years before something is settled, right? And a good example of that is as XRP, right? That was a prolonged legal battle that is still going on, mind you, right? That company Ripple was willing to fight, right? And so I think, to be quite honest with you, Gary did not expect to face this kind of opposition and resistance when he started doing battle with folks within the cryptocurrency space, right? He thought that he would conduct business as usual, that he would he would slap a lawsuit on somebody and they will settle out of court, right? And we spoke about this. I believe it was either the last week or the week prior to that, where the Tom Bilyeu, right, and his company was just paid a fine and settled out of court in order for them to just be able to conduct business, right? But what you're going to realize is a lot of people within the space are not just going to fold all over and bend over backwards and just pay a fine. They're actually going to take you to court and fight you. And it doesn't matter if it takes a prolonged battle before that case gets resolved, right? People are going to fight. I don't think that Gary expected to face that kind of opposition when picking fights with people within crypto. And that's why he's taking these L's left and right. And that's, I think, that's precisely why they had to grill him there. I think that's basically the underlying message there is, hey man, it seems like these people aren't pushovers. So in order for you to stop making us look bad and to stop making that department look bad, you should probably start picking your fights a bit more wisely, right? And only pick fights with people that you know you can beat, because you're making us look bad and you're making that organization look bad. That's just my thoughts that came out from that whole situation.
He's not being held accountable
that's ultimately
though.
what they started doing was the entire arguments that they were having with him when it came to the cryptocurrency side of it was simply, what are you doing? They would just ask that question, what are you doing? Ultimately, Gary was just kind of like, well, we need to figure out exactly what is a security, because these crypto assets are all securities, but we need to figure out exactly how to put it. And it's like, well, okay, can you focus? And that's what everyone was saying was, can you focus instead on protecting the investors first and then figuring that out later? And he would say that they're working on it, but it's basically like, no, you're not actually thinking about that right now. You're just trying to get lawsuits out of the way right now. And that's all that he was saying, to be truthful.
The whole
Go ahead.
hearing and the whole committee, to me, just that the whole committee came off to me as like just a massive flow of examples of Gary being a little weasel. Like, I don't know how to put it off other than like he's just putting out little weasel vibes. Is like, I didn't understand a lot of the stuff that they were talking about. A lot of the questions didn't make sense to me. But like just watching his body language, listening to the responses he's giving to people that are inadequate, like regarding their questions, like, hey, I sent you this stuff like half a year ago, you never responded to me, like I expect responses to my inquiries to your, like it just reeked of unprofessionalism and like, I don't know, weaselly behavior. And that is the vibe, the energy that I read off of Gary Gensler whenever he's talking to these people, whenever he's doing his stuff. He's an educated guy. Like, he's not, I don't think he's stupid, but he's making a bunch of bad decisions, and he's not in my particular interpretation of it all, he's making a bunch of bad decisions and he's not being held accountable, and he's just trying to, I don't know if get away with a bunch of crap is the right way to phrase it, but I don't know. He stinks of a non wholesome character human being. And that's how the whole interview, the whole committee hearing seemed to me is just a whole bunch of gobbledygook and just instances of a person not doing a very good job with the job that they're given. That's how I interpreted it. And also just about damn near put me to sleep. So
yeah, and he's not going to be held accountable. At least not right now. At least not by the Senate Banking Committee. Even any pushback questions that he got, they weren't. There wasn't much fire. There wasn't much veracity in the questions. It wasn't a hold your feet to the fire sort of conversation. They were, just questions that seemed to be asked to help pass everybody's 5-minute time. But yeah, I mean, there may have been one or two senators that wanted some serious information in there. Senator Loomis being one of them. But yeah, for the most part, it was very limited on its crypto exposure, and the answers that were given were beat around the bush sort of answers. It was good to see that he was questioned on the grayscale ruling. And his only reply to that was that, his team is reviewing the lawsuit return, the court ruling. That's all he said, because Senator Brown asked him to answer the question briefly and then move on. So any final thoughts before we Jay, you just came off of mute. Yeah, pretty much. Jay, what were you gonna say?
Yeah, so I do have to show a little bit of admiration. You mentioned Senator Loomis, and when she came onto the floor, right? This subject came. The question was, she inquired to Gary, because I believe the conversation circled around Gary saying that if companies wanted to transact in cryptocurrency, right, that their treasury, in order to protect investors, should have one-to-one. Like, for example, if you're holding $1 million worth of Bitcoin, that your treasury should back that Bitcoin up with also $1 million worth in fiat, right? And I think she said something along the lines of, if you expect these companies to do that, how come you don't extend that same ruling to major banks, right? Because I think anybody familiar with how our banking system works, right? We do fractional reserve banking. You on the books, JP Morgan probably holds several $1 trillion worth of people's money. But we all know that they don't keep that money physically in their safe. A lot of that is just numbers on a screen, on a ledger, on a computer somewhere, right? And so that really endeared her to me, because I was like, wow. It was probably one of the few instances during that entire hearing that somebody threw a hardball question at him. And I love that his response was, "I'm sorry, that's not my department." And that's literally what he said, right? How those organizations collateralize their funds is completely up to them. And I got a pretty good laugh out of there. But that was a pretty ballsy move. That was a pretty ballsy question for her to throw at him, to be quite honest.
Do you remember that one dude who was like, "Oh, I noticed that you're hiring all these like people who are right next to Hillary Clinton and Joe Biden and all that. Why are you like that? Aren't you trying to lean for a certain thing, whatever?" I'm like, what is this dude on right now?
Yeah, I remember that portion though. Yeah, I mean, you're going to get those sort of questions,
right? That was weird.
Yeah, I mean, you're going to constantly get those. I know when I first listened to it, I was driving down the interstate, and I thought it was a decent line of questionings talking about AI and regulation and stuff like that. And then that question came up, and I was like, oh, here we go. All right, it's one of those sorts of questions. So. But any final comments before Will? I see that you're off mute. Did you want to say something real quick?
Well, I was just gonna say, like, that's not a question. That's a person making a statement, like some sort of stupid little public record thing. It's like, hey, I just want this to be known that I said this to you. It's like they present their thesis and then they say yes or no, and like it's technically a question. It's just a person.
It's political points. Political points. That's what it is.
An idea out there. Yeah, it's nothing of substance. Yeah. I'm just agreeing with you, man.
All right. Well, with that being said, we're going to transition to the third story. But before we get there, make sure you guys, if you haven't done so already, make sure you smash that like button. Make sure you guys are subbed. Make sure you hit that notification bell. The biggest thing that you guys can do is copy that URL into your social medias and blast it out for everyone to see. So if you guys could share the link to the channel, that would be phenomenal. Make sure you guys are in our Telegram chat, and make sure you guys are following us on social media. So with that being said, the third story, we are going to be talking about Visa expanding stablecoin settlement capabilities to merchants. Jay, this was your story, buddy. Go ahead and take it away.
Yeah, man. So when this news hit the fan, I personally thought it was a really big deal. And when I was listening to other content creators out on YouTube speak about this, some of them thought it was, they were in my camp thinking that it was also a big deal. But then there were a few big channels, I'm not gonna mention, I'm not gonna throw anybody under the bus here, that thought it was well, I guess not as big of a deal as we think it is, right? But you have to consider the fact that Visa handles over 54% of the payment processing around the world, right? And so if they're expanding their settlement capabilities to include USDC, right now it's just USDC, right? But it's a start. And if they're expanding their settlement capabilities to utilize USDC for cross-border payments, that's a pretty damn big deal, right? So I want to go over a little bit of the background behind this story, right? And so when we say that they're expanding their settlement capabilities to include USDC, that just basically means that you have issuers, which is the bank of, like, for example, I'm paying using my credit card, right? The issuer is my bank, right? And then the acquirer is the merchant's bank, whatever I'm buying from. Maybe it's Amazon, maybe it's a physical marketplace here, right? Like my local Fry's. The acquirer is their bank, right? And everything that's settled, right? Like when payments are settled between me and them, all of that has to be settled in fiat currency, right? Here it's the US dollar, in Japan it's the Japanese yen, in China it's the yuan, and etc. Right? And so what Visa has done is in their pilot program, at the very least, they did this with Crypto.com. They said, look, we're going to pilot using USDC, right, for settling payments with Crypto.com, right? And so they piloted this program out in Australia. And what happened was, I'm sure you guys are familiar here. Some of you may have. Nate, was it you who has the Crypto.com credit card? Sorry, not credit card, the Crypto.com card, right?
That is correct, yes.
Yes. And so what the Crypto.com card is, for those of you who are not familiar, that is a prepaid debit card, right? You load funds on it, and then you're able to use it at whatever merchant you might want to use it on, right? And the cool thing about that card, what people don't know, is you can actually load that card up using funds from your crypto wallet on Crypto.com. So let's say you have Bitcoin, you have Ethereum, you can load that card up with Bitcoin and Ethereum. And what Crypto.com will use is they will convert, when you swipe that card, they will convert that Bitcoin or Ethereum in your wallet into the fiat, whatever currency they use in Australia. They would convert that Bitcoin and Ethereum to the fiat currency in Australia in order to settle that payment with that merchant, right? And so that's a pretty big deal because, like I said, Visa handles over 54% of payment transactions worldwide, right? And so because of that successful pilot, right, they are now expanding settlement capabilities to merchant acquirers, right? And so that could be anywhere, like, for example, marketplace merchants that are online, like Amazon, like Google, maybe it's Facebook, and just online retail stores in general. And the reason why that's a big deal is because it cuts down significantly, not only on the time it takes for those settlements to be finalized, but it also decreases the amount of exchange fees, right? And then because we're also working within the crypto space, right? That means that we're not limited to working within regular banking hours, right? And so I'm sure a lot of you guys here, but for example, let me give you a personal example, right? A lot of my customers use Venmo in order to transact with me, right? And so when they pay for one of my items, right, they send those funds over to my Venmo account, right? And on their side, right, they think, okay, I've paid this man what he's owed, right? But for me, I actually have to transfer that money over to my bank and wait anywhere between 1 to 3 business days in order for that payment to get settled, right? Why is that? Well, because first, their bank has to send the funds to Venmo, right? and then Venmo has to clear that payment from their bank and then send that over to my bank, right? So that takes anywhere between 1 to 3 business days, right? And that's just here in the US. Imagine if you were trying to convert those funds from one currency to the other, right? That's also going to take fees, right? And right now, we only that's going to exist within regular banking hours, right? So that's only 9 to 5, Monday through Friday, not including weekends, right? But what this is doing is expanding, because they're using USDC as the form of payment to settle transactions. Now you're not going to have any significant fees, right? The pilot reduced the pre-funding wait time from 8 days to 4 days, and then you're also now able to transact potentially outside of regular banking hours. And so I couldn't see this as anything but a big deal. So I'm gonna leave it at that. I'm gonna open it up to you guys for comments, just to get your thoughts on this. And like what do you think about this move with Visa and Crypto.com and them using USDC to settle these payments?
Hey, Jay, here's the thing. Like, this is a really major deal, right? Because it allows for, number one, institutions to be able to trade with each other, right? To be using credit with each other. That's number one. So now we have institutional money, which has already been prepping for a while, by the way, to get into the crypto space. I mean, they've already been in the crypto space, but I mean, like, really into it, coming up with the spot ETFs and all that, right? Like, they're really going to be hardcore into it. And also on top of that, because the institutions can start using them, that's also going to allow for it to be easy, right, for just retail users to start using it as well. So I think when you look at how it all works, right, the regular credit card system right now, there's a lot of different moving parts to it, but it's so easy for you because all you do is just simply swipe, accept, boom, you're done. All right, it's as easy as that. But when using it with the crypto and all that, you had to onboard that money first and then transfer it into crypto and then all that stuff, right? So it got kind of convoluted, a little bit slow. But now that they're just going to like sit on USDC, that's just automatically going to be swapping it all, right? And quite frankly, if you're looking at how stable coins work right now, stable coins are a reserve currency universal currency because the entire world can use it, right? The entire world can use it for exactly what they want and then revert it back whenever they decide into whatever currency they have. And so this is huge. I would put this akin to they're laying out a super highway now, right? Now there's a super highway for people to start using and getting to where they need to go instead of just having a country road. There's going to be a lot of movement. Quite frankly, it's just going to be put it another notch into the perfect storm theory at this point because things are ramping up, man.
Well, it's like one of the big takeaway that I got from this article is like, oh, finally, welcome to the world of crypto, regular traditional finance. Like, here you are discovering this thing that we're all using, and now you're implementing it, in your own big boy world. So now Visa's going to step up to the plate with the rest of us, regular old jack-offs every day, retail investors or whatever the heck. So it's like big money's going to be coming in, or, well, I would presuppose that big money is going to be coming in. People are going to see, oh, this is a thing that works. Visa, like one of the biggest names in the business, is starting to use this really fantastic technology. And fucking buckle up, boys. This is what it's using, the Solana network, right? So like I think on the website it was saying 400 millisecond block times, and like 400. I don't remember if it was 400 transactions per second or 4,000 transactions per second, but it was freaking ridiculous. So it's like, welcome to the world of us degenerates. Now the big money's coming in. Solana's probably going to be doing some crazy things. Or let me take that back. I don't know what Solana's going to be doing, but I think that it would be reasonable to expect that if, Visa is using Solana, that's big money. That plays into the perfect storm theory. Like, Nate was just saying. So we're gonna see what happens, but this is good news, gents.
Yeah. And so you actually brought up a part of that article, which I failed to mention. So the Crypto.com pilot, they use the Ethereum network exclusively for that pilot, right? Now they're expanding support to use the Solana network, right? So now they're going to be able to settle payments with USDC using the Solana network. And as you said, that's going to decrease the amount of fees, and that's going to expedite the settlement. The time between settlement, it's going to be even faster, right? Assuming, of course, that Solana stays, assuming, of course, that Solana breaks the habit of breaking down every once in a while, right? And here's another thing, right? The reason why this is an even bigger deal, right, is because the partnership that Visa is making with their merchant acquirers, right? So they're making partnerships with both WorldPay and Nuve, right? And Nuve is the largest payment processor in Canada, right? And then WorldPay, which was acquired by Fidelity National, right? They are the largest payment processor in the world, right? So I have some stats here for let's see here for WorldPay, right? So they process annually $726 billion in transactions, right? And then Nuve, like I said, they're the biggest payment processor in based in Canada. They process about 95 billion in annual transactions, right? And then Fidelity National, the ones that acquired WorldPay in 2020, so they process over $9 trillion in annual transaction, right? And so that's equal to the value of BlackRock's holdings in annual transactions, right? And so that is a pretty damn big deal, if I do say so myself. Josh, did you have any comments on that?
Not necessarily comments. I'm just interested to learn, Nate, what was your experience with the card, and did you link it to be able to use the full features and to see exactly what Jay was talking about? Like, did you actually experience and see that, or did you just use it like was it a regular credit card pretty much, or a debit card?
Yeah. So here's the way it works. It's a prepay credit card. Like, basically what you do is you preload it with your crypto, right? So I'm gonna, and this is where it's so cool, man. So let's say I'm gonna go to Mexico, right? I got a vacation out there. All right, cool. What's my budget? Maybe about $2,000, $10,000, right? Okay, cool. So I'm gonna take $10,000 worth of Crow. I'm gonna throw it onto that card now. Okay, that card is going to convert over to pesos. Now I literally have a credit card that I can walk around with and just however I want, right? And then if it's right on your phone, right? So you're like, oh, okay, well, I'm out of money. You simply prepay again, right? Now, where it differs from a credit card, obviously, is a credit card, you just keep swiping, and then the number just keeps going up, right? And then you pay it off later. That's where I think the difference is going to be as far as like speed-wise goes, because the only way that they could do it properly right now is by you preloading it first, right? That was the difference. But the concept and the idea was amazing. And you did get special for however much you would load into it. And they had a little bit of a reward system with how much Crow you stake on the exchange. You get special different rewards by using it as well, right? But you get, a cash back type of feature that would be paid out in Crow. And there's a lot of different things, but it's really neat. You just get little rewards and stuff, right? So, and as of right now, I switched over to the Gemini card because overall it was just better for me, but it's the same type of concept. It's just not Visa specifically. However, I literally pay off every single one of my bills and I'm getting Ethereum back. And I have made, with the prices where they're at right now, but I've made probably 0.5, half of Ethereum just by paying bills. And so I just end up sending that right back to my wallet. Here we go, right? So, I mean, there's some really neat things you can do.
Yeah, and what's interesting is, if you think, maybe 2-3 years from now, once this pilot is figured out, and once it's actually turned into an actual program, we'll be able to see a world where people are, if they have an employer. Well, I mean, I'm sort of skipping a few steps. So eventually what we'll be able to do is we'll be able to get to a point where people are able to take their salaries and stuff like that in the currency of their choice, the crypto of their choice. And then what they'll be able to do is they'll be able to use a card similar to that to transact on the regular, throughout life, whether it be, at a gas station or, pretty much wherever that card is accepted or something like that. We're not too far away from it. We really aren't. And the more and more we get into carrying less cash around, like I have a $10 bill in my wallet. I'll be honest with you. I don't know if I'll use that. Maybe if I'm at like a Dunkin' Donuts or something like that, and I just happen to open up my wallet, but I can't remember the last time I really used cash. You know what I'm saying? And this $10 bill, I took my daughter to a carnival over the weekend, and the guy overpaid me for one of those basketball shots where you get to win a stuffed animal. So he was just like, well, instead of going through that, let me just give you $10, because that was the correct amount. And I was like, okay, that works. That's fine. So, I went down a rabbit hole there, but yeah, we'll eventually be able to get to that point. It sounds like it's not that far off now. Now with the, can you only load Chrono on it, or can you load like Bitcoin and Ethereum on it and it does the same thing?
So the rewards that you get paid out in for the crypto.com credit card specifically is in Crow, which is exactly. So that's the main asset of crypto.com, right? But you can load the card with funds from your crypto account on crypto.com, right? So let's say you didn't follow our advice and you kept your crypto on crypto.com, right? On a centralized exchange. You can take those funds and load your card with your Bitcoin or your Ethereum, right? And when you swipe that card before the pilot, right? What they would do is crypto.com would use your Bitcoin and Ethereum, convert that to USD at whatever exchange rate was at that day, right? Because it's a spot conversion. And then they would have to pay the merchants out in USD, right? So what this whole thing is about is now that Visa is partnering with large merchant acquirers like WorldPay and Nuvei and settling those payments in USDC, now you take away that conversion, right? You no longer need to convert that crypto into fiat. You could just settle the payment with USDC. And before you know it, once people have exposure to that stable coin, I don't see any reason why merchants won't start considering accepting Ethereum or Bitcoin, right? I think the reason why they chose USDC was because it's a stable coin, right? Mm-hmm. And people just have a little bit more sense of comfort, I guess, and peace because a stable coin isn't supposed to be volatile. So they're comfortable being paid in a currency that's pegged 1-to-1 to the US dollar. But I think once people realize that crypto is going to phase out traditional fiat currency, they're going to start wanting to be paid out in Bitcoin and Ethereum. So there's that.
That's a very interesting point you brought up there, Jay. So let's kind of dive into that a little bit. So phasing out the traditional market of, like, say, the dollar, right? So now what you're talking about is we got a new world reserve currency, and let's say it's Bitcoin, right? So at that point in time, like, what are we looking at here? Like, we're no longer looking at, Bitcoin is, $22,000, right? We're looking at, you have one Bitcoin, you've got half a Bitcoin, right? Oh, this thing is going to cost like 3 zeros and 1 Bitcoin, That's what it's kind of sounding like with what you're saying there. You really think that's going to come to pass, or are we still going to be sitting on the dollar?
Go ahead, Will. Give me your thoughts on it, brother.
I was just going to say, well, all that is that's just restructuring your frame of reference as to what is like the denominated thing inside of your mind, whether you denominate your purchases in Bitcoin, whether you denominate them in dollars, whether you denominate them in fucking, I don't know, chicken eggs, right? Like the right now it's the dollar. That's the thing that it is. And it could one day become the central bank digital currency, whether that's the Fed now coin or whether it's USDC or whether it's like DAI or whatever ends up becoming the next new thing. If the next new thing happens, like it would just be a restructuring of, like, now I think of this stuff in Satoshis or I don't know if Gwai would be appropriate for Ethereum if it ends up just getting so crazy huge. But yeah, I mean that's just a reframing. That's just a mind trick, That's I mean El Salvador kind of does it with their with now that's one of their national currencies down there, and it's the country. I don't know what the country's doing with Bitcoin, how they do prices, if they have like, instead of paper price tags, if they have like a little ticker symbol for like the or like a number that's constantly changing, like in their stores for Bitcoin, because it's not like Bitcoin does crazy price moves, but over like the span of a week, it could go up or down like a semi-significant amount. And so like if you have a Bitcoin price tag and an El Salvadorian dollar or whatever their other thing that they use, like on your little produce or your store or whatever, then like that'll be really interesting using a volatile asset as opposed to a big asset. So like,
Yeah, and see, that's the reason. I mean, that's a great point you brought up there. And that's the reason why I don't think we're actually ever going to get away from the dollar. But I do think not necessarily the frame of reference of specifically what it is that we're using as a world reserve currency, but I do see us sticking to stable coins. And I think this is the reason why the governments of the world are so involved in, like, there's cryptocurrencies and then there's stable coins, right? It's because stable coins allows access to the US dollar. One of the most important things for any country is going to be access to US dollars. And that's going to be stable coins. What I'm kind of seeing,
perhaps this Visa move. Go ahead, finish your thought. Sorry.
Well, I mean, you're correct about that. With the Visa move, being able to get all these institutions, retail, and everything to streamline into stable coins, obviously CBDCs are going to be coming out as well, right? And so I think all of these, all the roads are kind of leading towards our reserve currency is still going to be a dollar, but it's going to be specifically stable coin dollar. I believe that's going to be a little bit different. As far as inflation goes, I'm not quite sure how that would kind of work out yet. Now that we have it in a digital form and we can escape to something like a Bitcoin, digital gold type of deal, right? Would inflation continue on the same path that it is? Maybe it is, maybe it won't. There might be an argument there, something you could think about. But I think overall, especially like when you're looking at how a lot of countries who can't get dollars right now are able to just go on and get USDT, right? Get some tether. That's basically a dollar now. You got different types of dollars, and it's still worth a dollar. So now we've come to a spot in history where a lot of these countries where they couldn't get dollars before because the United States didn't like them or whatever, right? Well, now they have the ability to get dollars. It's really going to change things up, and it's very fascinating to think about the future of that. And this Visa move is definitely like a super highway that they're paving right now for that to happen, I would say.
I've got the game theory worked out, boys. Not only is Hunter Biden Satoshi Nakamoto, as I had mentioned from before, Hunter Biden is Satoshi, but not only that, but the central bank digital currency is going to be the pulse chain copy of DAI. That's what it's going to be. This is how it's all going to work out. Visa's just the start of it, and then the pulse chain garbage ass copy of DAI is going to be the CBDC. And it turns out that this whole time Satoshi was just Hunter Biden. That's my super fun game theory. For those of you that think I'm serious, that there's going to be some people on the internet that see this and they're like, oh, look at that. Like I'm 100% joking right now. This is 100% satire. So don't take that to mean anything. But I follow the game very how the world's going to adopt CBDCs.
Hey, Will, see if you can fix your connection, buddy. You're starting to you go in and out and stuff like that. So yeah, see if you can fix your connection a little
Yeah,
bit.
man, it's like he's got connection from the 2000s, man. That dial-up AOL connection.
He started mentioning Hunter Biden, and then all of a sudden his internet started to shit the bed. So I think that's I think he might be onto something there. Yeah. So all right, cool. Any final thoughts?
Yeah. So there's a few more things that I wanted to share, but trying to comment on what Nate said earlier, I think for the most part, yes, merchants to a large degree will probably want to settle those payments in a stable coin, right? Because it's not volatile. But small businesses and people like us who know the value proposition of crypto, what the good thing that does for people like us is it exposes the broader market to crypto. And so people that are going to be exposed to using USDC as a form of payment are now going to be a bit more comfortable transacting in crypto, right? And maybe they'd be comfortable holding a little bit of that crypto within their wallets, especially when they see that, oh, you mean it doesn't take forever for me to get paid. It also doesn't cost a ton of money for me to be able to transact using the stable coin, right? Like I can send money to my family and it's not going to cost me $50 for a wire that's gonna take 7 to 10 days for them to receive the money, right? So they're gonna realize that. And then for folks like us who realize the value proposition of crypto, right? We're gonna meet those people out there in the space and we're gonna be like, hey, you know what? Instead of like paying me US dollars for this meal that we went to a restaurant and shared, like, why don't you just pay me in crypto, right? It's going to be faster. You don't have to go through like your Venmo. You don't have to go through your Cash App. You can just pay me directly. You can just scan this QR code, right? What that's going to do, right, is it's going to expose people to this space and expose them to that kind of transaction, right? That kind of payment system, right? And if anything, it's going to expose the value of using crypto to transact to a broader market, right? And so I think this can only be good news. I know a lot of folks are, there might be some folks out there who are saying, I don't want these big players to put their hands into this space. But like, to be quite honest with you guys, I think I think everybody here can agree with me in saying that, look, unless we get this kind of broad market adoption for crypto, it's not going to do anything for the price of the assets that we hold, right? And we're in this space to make money. And so the more people get into this space, the more those assets are going to appreciate and the more money we're going to make. So, but I'm a selfish capitalist, so,
Selfish capitalist. And see what you're saying there too. I mean, like I was saying with right now we're getting mass adoption, right? Every single thing that's going on right now is, hey, retail people, stock people, come in, right? I mean, if you're looking at the ETFs, you're not gonna make a MetaMask like the normal person, right? You're not gonna make a MetaMask. You're not gonna be going and buying on Bitcoin. You're not gonna get over to Ethereum and then start running around on Polygon or any of that, right? You're not gonna do that. And instead, you're like, oh well, I need something safe. I'm handling like $100 million here. Where should I put it? Well, out of $100 million, put 1% of it into a crypto asset, because you want to be very, very diverse, right? And so when you go and you throw it into crypto, it's going to be via the safe BlackRock ETF, right? And then when you're going to make transactions between from your customers to whatever it is you're doing, right? It's going to be through Visa, very safe, right? And all I'm seeing is that they're just making it as safe as absolute possible for people with big money, right, to be able to start throwing around and start moving money as well. And that's the other thing. That's the really important thing about, with Visa trying so hard to get this rolling, is because not only is it safe, but it's fast, and they're able to move it anywhere they want. That's the entire point,
It's brand recognition, right? It's the optics, right? The
Exactly.
same brand recognition and optics you get with BlackRock and Bitcoin, that's the same brand recognition and optics that you're going to get with Visa and stablecoin, and in the future, Bitcoin, Ethereum, and maybe the broader crypto space. There's one more short clip that I wanted to share with you guys that is it's like speaking about brand recognition, right? I'm going to share with you a clip of David Marcus. He is the founder of Lightspark, and he's doing something he's trying to do something very similar using the Lightning Network for Bitcoin. So give me 1 second here. I'm going to share that video with you guys. And very interesting, to say the least. Give me 1 second. Here we go.
So we were just saying the state of fintech and the state of payments and where we really are. You're working on a new project. I shouldn't even say a new project, but a project around the Lightning Network, which is aimed at basically taking Bitcoin. You can explain it better than I can. Effectively, you take it off chain and then put it back on chain to make these transactions faster.
Yes, actually, what we're trying to do is turn Bitcoin into a real global payment network, because we have many tourists walking right outside of the studio right now. If you were to stop one of them and wanting to communicate with them, you could ask them for an email address, and you can email them easily the next minute. You could text them, you could add them to a group video chat, you can do all of these things. But if you were to send them money, if they were not a US citizen here in the US using one of the same fintech apps you're using, then you wouldn't be able to do that. And so we're still in the fax era of global payments, and that's what we're attempting to solve.
Right. Well, why is that so important, by the way? Because the truth is, I can use Venmo. I mean, others can use services that are connected to each other. Why is that such a terrible answer?
So let's double click on that for a second. So you can use Venmo, but if someone is not using Venmo or is an international tourist walking right outside right now,
right now, if I have an iPhone and I want to message somebody, I mean, if I don't have WhatsApp and somebody wants to WhatsApp me, they have to get the WhatsApp app.
But you have text, which is universal, where you can actually communicate and reach out to anyone you want in the world with one simple addressing scheme, which is a phone number, which is human readable. And you can't do that with money. There's no universal protocol for money on the internet that actually enables value to be transported through the internet. So if you were to want to send money to one of these people, you would probably need to ask them for a bank account number. The bank account number would be in different format depending on where you are in the world. You would have to actually physically walk to a branch and pay $50 to do an international wire. And if it's after Friday, 5 p.m., tough luck.
And how big a business is that?
It's ginormous, right? It's trillions of dollars of transactions that transit through SWIFT and other payment networks.
Well, let me ask you a separate question.
Okay.
So Swift on steroids is basically what we're talking about here.
Right. And to give you guys a bit of context, that guy, was the former president of PayPal. He also worked with Meta, right, formerly Facebook, on their messaging platform, right? He's the one that allowed the payment system, right? You know how you can pay people through Facebook Messenger, right? That was him. And then up until 2022, he was, what is it here? He was the he was appointed to the Coinbase board of directors, and he was there from 2017 through 2018 before, I think, finally stepping down in 22 to build Lightspark in order to utilize Bitcoin and the Lightning Network as a form of settlement payments for customers and their merchants. So if there was one guy that you think that could do it, it's probably going to be him.
Good stuff. Good stuff. All right. Any final comments before we start the wrap?
The world's going pretty cool, guys. things are starting to shape up. The prices just need to fucking reflect it, for fuck's sake.
Yeah.
That's it.
What Will, why don't you go ahead and start the wrap? Let everyone know where they can find you, what you got coming up, and what they can look forward to.
All right, sweet. So what I got in the pipeline is basically just traveling from one side of New York to the next. And other than that, looking at some delicious prices in the pulse chain world. You guys can find me in the descriptions below. The best one is probably the Telegram, t.me, Will Stevenson. That's about all I got. Nate, I believe you are up next, my good sir. There's the door.
Yeah. I'm telling you right now, getting into our Telegram is going to be a major boost to your knowledge. I know our very first story, Brandon came out, started talking about these numbers. He, shout out to him. He is fucking insane when it comes to that stuff. That's like his thing. When he looks at that stuff, he really can get deep into it. So yeah, shout out to you, Brandon. But yeah, other than that, I'm just continuing on. Like me Tracker, the me Tracker and Jeff, we're trying to get together as far as setting up all of our little shows right now. We've been pretty busy, but yeah, we're trying to get more on-chain analysis going for the shows. I mean, you guys always get the technical analysis, you're getting the fundamental analysis, but there's another one that's very important, and that's the on-chain data. And when I was going through it, I'm thinking to myself, wow, this is really important stuff. You can truly, I almost want to say, predict the future. You have a crystal ball when you throw all these four: sentimental, technical, fundamental, and on-chain analysis, and you put them all together. It's like the crystal ball, so you can tell the future. How about you, Jay? What's up?
Yeah, so as usual, guys, a big thank you to you all who are going to watch this on the replay. And for you guys who are watching live right now, we know that time is your most valuable asset. And we certainly do appreciate that you spend a bit of that time with us. As always, you can find me on Instagram at agent_J_Schroth and on Twitter at _P90Hex. Please comment, like, and subscribe. Make sure you get into our Telegram chat because there's a lot of alpha that's being dropped in there on a daily basis, all for free. And we have a lot of helpful guys and girls there who are more than willing to help out with anything from the beginner to the intermediate to the expert question that you might have. Throw your ideas and your question in there because somebody's going to be willing to help you out. Other than that, once again, thank you. Josh, take us out.
Yeah, and we got some really cool guest speakers coming around the corner for you guys. We will not have a guest speaker this Wednesday. We haven't decided if we're going to do some sort of AMA. We haven't figured out what we're going to. We might just take the night off and not have a live stream. That might be the play. We're not sure. But we don't have anything coming up this Wednesday. Of course, you got the Sunday shows at 8:00 to look forward to. The 27th, we have Corey Costa. The 4th, we have Crypto Sloth. And then the 11th, we have tentatively confirmed RG3 Pirate. So those are the next 3 special guests that we're going to have coming up. Nate will be hosting Corey Costa, and then Jay is going to be hosting Sloth and RG3. So that's pretty much what we got going on as far as special guests around the corner. Another cool announcement, myself and Brendan, we're going to be down at the Cardano Virtual Summit down in Miami for the community meetup down there. And we were officially offered a 30-minute speaking segment. So we will be giving a presentation on inflation down in Miami. So I know Will's coming down to help us out with that, and there are a couple of folks from the community who might be coming down to hang out a little bit that Friday. But that's what we got coming up. And of course, we're all seeing if we can fit in time into our schedules to do some more DR insights with more and more live speakers and special guests coming up, and with stuff that we got coming around the corner. It's time is becoming more and more scarce as we go along. So. But we're trying to put together the best show that we can for you guys. So for those of you guys that are watching us live, thank you so much. For those of you guys that are catching us on replay, make sure you tune in next Sunday. But hit that notification bell. We might be coming up with an episode, an AMA, or some sort of DR insights in the middle of the week. It's been known to happen. If you guys haven't done so already, make sure you guys smash that like button. Make sure you guys are subscribed to the channel. Hit that notification bell, copy that URL, put it out onto your social media, send it out there so your friends and family can see exactly what we're about, and so that they can get a head start on all the crypto content as well. Make sure you guys are in the Telegram channel. It's growing every day. It's an awesome community. And make sure you guys are following us on Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook as well. So with that being said, we thank everyone for watching. We will catch you guys back here, unless, of course, we decide to do a show in the middle of the week. But if that's the case, we'll find out. We'll put the announcement out in the Telegram. So we hope everyone has a good night. And with that being said, we are out.